Okay, Duke, we're rolling. What I wanted to share with you guys today is pretty cool. It's actually my favorite law of nature. And got my buddy here, Duke, and I want you to see this beautiful Mustang. He is a cool one. I have had him the longest out of all my horses that are here on this farm in North Carolina. This particular fellow, um, the story's in the book, so I don't want to spoil it for you. But he and I had a connection just right from the very start. And law of cause and effect played the biggest part of our relationship, helping me understand it, and the biggest part of our relationship in the growing and the development of what it is today. This is a level 5 horse, meaning that my students that come through American Mustang School go through our 5 levels, and this horse is only available to a level 5 individual. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. But again, I'm Justin Dunn, American Mustang School. If you found this YouTube page, I'm trying to bring you something that's not out there yet. People haven't really correlated the laws of nature, laws of the universe, with horsemanship. There's a very few people that understand it in the first place, but to interact with horses and understanding the laws of nature is another thing. It is the thing. They are nature, we are nature, and us coming together in an understanding of those laws allows us to grow deeper, higher level of consciousness. So without further ado, we'll get started. Duke is a highly alert horse. He just took a deep breath, so I'm going to take a deep breath so our internal communication inner pathway can synchronize. Breathing, heart rate, muscle tension. The 4 things that we need to understand that we have control over are thoughts, emotions, attitude, action. Again, in my book, I go into detail on that. That is one thing myself can control. Myself needs to understand what can and cannot be controlled. I cannot control this horse standing next to me. He's way too powerful. And his survival instincts are very strong. His self-preservation is so high. I highly respect this horse for that because it taught me that that's an important factor in horsemanship and in dealing with humans. If this horse here ever feels threatened as far as his survivability, he will definitely rebel. And I learned that from him day one of meeting him. So some of the things that my students struggle with in level 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and then getting up to a level of communication with a horse like this is something I want to talk to you about. And it's very important in horsemanship, but it's very important in life. And it's self-devaluation. We are harder on ourselves than most other people are, especially if we're trying to keep up with society's rules, I'll say. So coming out of a society's rules, we get to go into nature's rules. And that's where it counts, especially in horsemanship. I'm at a point today in my life that I get to do exactly what I want to do. And I've understood abiding in those laws of nature have allowed me to do that. So understanding the law of cause and effect, I learned not to self-devalue myself. I learned that self-devaluation is only going to inhibit me from getting a relationship with something so magnificent as a horse like this, that cares about himself so high that he's almost going to demand that I do it as well. I definitely have to care about myself on that level and care about him on that level. And that's something that can't just be said. That's something that has to be shown through the law of cause and effect. Now, if I'm living in the effect, I'm going to try to explain this as simple terms as possible. So I played with a bunch of horses before I got him. And some of those horses would tolerate certain things I was unaware of. Well, this horse would not. And forcing to submit with pain and fear, forced compliance. Some of the horses that I'd played with, I was taught, you do that. You show them who's boss. You dominate through force. And those horses would tolerate it and seem to respond effectively with it. But I'm here to tell you the law of cause and effect has a macro and a micro reality to it. You know, something in the moment and something long-term, short-term, long-term. So I developed a system to understand this in more depth. And it's an interactive system with horses to get a desirable result. And I use a 5-part series of questioning where I'll ask a horse mechanical questions to back up, to go to the left, go to the right, come forward, ground tie. And then I'll observe the feedback in those questions from the horse. You know, those questions are how he can, I'll say talk, but communicate with me. He gets a voice. And the only way that this cause and effect is ever going to be understood is equal the playing field as far as I'm going to ask you questions, you can ask me questions. And then we get a deeper understanding of each other in the long term, definitely in the short term, but in the long term as well. So why? Why do you even need to watch this video? Why do we need to know this? Well, life is kind of like a game. Horsemanship is a small game. Life is a big game. And we want to understand how to not get hurt in the short term and in the long term. We want to understand how to benefit myself in this game of horsemanship, benefit myself in the game of life, all areas of life. Let's just touch on that for a second. Health, wealth, happiness, relationships, spirituality. All of those things are very important in my life, and I understand cause and effect in all those areas. So in horsemanship, it's like a micro level of getting nanosecond feedback in cause and effect. How is this going to affect the health of my horse, the health of me? If I put a bit in his mouth, does it interrupt anything in his health, of his, mental health, physical health, and wellness? In the short term, in the long term, all of these things are very important. And when I say living in the effect, whenever I would come against, and I'll say against, a horse like this, I was living in the effect of a different cause of horsemanship. That mentality of dominate through pain and fear, forced submission. You're the boss. It's a battle. You got to win. Don't let them get away with all those things that I was taught through tradition of a cause and effect, which was wrong. I was living in that effect when I come into conversation with this horse or to interaction with this horse. None of it worked. This horse rebelled at every time of that. Anything I would do in that effect would cause him to rebel. So what I'm going to explain to you is very important, because we are the creator of this relationship. When we invite this horse into the human element, and we have an imagination, and remember, that's basically the only difference between he and I. Human, horse. I have bones, he has bones, blood, heart, brain, hair. You can find pretty much everything. Fingernails, hooves, all of these are the same. We both have to abide in these laws of nature to survive. The only difference that I've found thus far is imagination. I have the ability to imagine, analyze my thoughts, analyze my emotions. And based on analyzing those, what is the effect? So the cause, the thought, the cause, the being, the effect, the action, the effect, the outcome, what are we creating? What are we thinking, doing, cause and effect? What are we becoming? The character, the destiny. All of these things come into question, and it's the major why, the overarching why of understanding these laws of nature. Now, I want to bring your attention, because wherever attention goes, energy flows, to the number 5. I've noticed that pattern arise in all of my horsemanship and in my whole life, and the number 5. It's interesting that this law of cause and effect is number 5 in the sequence of these videos, and that is 5 represents transformation. And that, in essence, is what we want to do. We want to get from where we are to where we want to be. And we have to transition, or we have to transform from something to something. So law of cause and effect, very important to understand. When I came into the relationship with this horse, his mental awareness, his physical awareness was on high alert. He was in a traumatized state of being. I wanted to change that, but through traditional practices forcing compliance or forced to submit to me, he would rebel even harder. So the cause of that, the effect, was off the charts. So I had to think about what I was doing, and I had to change here, inner, thought, emotion, attitude, action, outer, and create the relationship that I have today. Now, in understanding this, the law of cause and effect will help you understand how you perceive yourself and how the horse perceives you in a micro setting, right here, right now. But it also lets you perceive yourself and how the world perceives you in a macro, set scale. So horsemanship is really cool because we get to practice this in a tiny little bubble, so to speak, and get nanosecond feedback, make instant changes, and do it again. So the law of cause and effect gets really clear, really understood in the short term and the long term. I got this horse in the summer of 2006, and here we are heading into the summer of 2024. He was a long 2-year-old, meaning he was almost 3. So I don't math out loud, but you can do the math. He's been with me quite a while. Now, him standing here on ground tie, he would not do this day one. No way, shape, form, or fashion. In fact, if I raised up my hand to touch my hat, he would run away. And I explained some of that in my book as to why. So I had to be something different than what he was accustomed to humans being. So I had to change and present what I expected from him. And in understanding cause and effect, I had to look at the effect he was living in based on the causes before I got him. With me changing that and presenting something worthwhile to create willingness in him to want to be with me, follow me, partner with me, I would get the real feedback, nanosecond time, on a small scale of what cause and effect really is. Then I started to realize that I can actually become something different through cause and effect. I can kind of reach out into the future and have some handle on it, have some effect to it today. So whatever I did today would prepare me for tomorrow. Whatever I continued to do that prepared me for a year away. Whatever I continued to do prepared me for 10 years, 18 years. Well, here we are today. I have a individual here that is so magnificent, added so much value to my life. I could only hope that I can add 1/10 of the value he's added to me and countless other people. But I know I have through the understanding of the law, cause and effect. See, we have free will as long as we abide in the laws of nature, understand cause and effect. So if I go into a negative mindset, the law of cause and effect still applies. If I go into a positive mindset, it still applies. Now, a lot of people aren't willing to change. They're not even willing to discover. And that's where the hangup is. We have free will. We have the free will to discover ourselves, look within, present outward. Horses give us the ability to see real time what that is, what it does, how it helps us, or how it's hurting us. And that's a beautiful piece of horsemanship. Now, with him, I learned that me trying to control outward had no benefit, did not work, was not producing any tangible rewards that I was wanting. So I also learned, the characteristics of men. We tend to intimidate, to dominate, for control outside of ourselves. You look at all these leaders, I guess we could call them, throughout history, intimidation tactics to dominate. And the things I'm telling you, very few know and very few practice, but the ones that do know this and the ones that do practice, they can manipulate societies, large amounts of people, and suppress a person's ability to be free. Let's just say that, without getting too sidetracked on some things. So, in other words, 2, 3, 4, 500 years ago, me explaining these things to you, I would be killed for it. There's a small group of people that do not want the masses to know laws of nature. What secrets is nature hiding from us? What are other people hiding from us? And we can discover ourselves with these laws and understanding and practicing them, and we can discover other people. We can discover horses. We can discover nature, all the secrets that are there. So, like I said, I don't want to get too off track, but men have the fallen man, I should say, ego man, earth-guided only man, wants to intimidate, to dominate, to control. And women, they want to kind of manipulate, to dominate, for control. Feed him cookies, manipulate him to do things. And then, we could go on a whole bunch of different variations of that. But I am here to teach you something I learned that's very valuable, and that's to go inward and present the truth, present something honest to the horse. I'm not going to whip him into submission, and I'm not going to treat him with treats to trick him into submission. I'm going to ask him a specific question with pressure and release of pressure. They understand pressure. They understand release of pressure. I understand pressure. He's going to apply pressure to me. And this is a conversation we're going to have. And that cause and effect becomes very clear. So why do we need to know this? Again, it's a game. First thing we need to know is we need to love ourselves. We need to practice loving ourselves no matter what. That cause of love will bring you into a higher level of consciousness, higher level of thinking, a deeper level of understanding. And then the effect will help you handle or deal with things outside of ourselves, anything outside of ourselves. So love is a verb, of course. We're going to practice love, but we're going to go inward and love ourselves first. And it'll help us deal with anything outside, because you're already going into a cause, a mindset, a thought that is a higher vibration and attractive to others. If you do not love yourself, if you go into a lower cause, you're angry with yourself, or you're devaluing yourself, you're doing anything to cause yourself guilt or shame, that's not going to be an attractive thing, and it's going to produce outside results that are along those lines. So in coming to him with a anger, I've got to be big, I've got to be strong, I've got to dominate, I've got to intimidate this horse, all those things, they just didn't work with him. He would not do it. And in the book I explained that, but he would rebel. Definitely rebellion, did not want anything to do with it. And I love horses so much, and even did then. I went in and thought, okay, wait a minute. This guy, I'm not enriching his life by trying these traditional practices. I've got to make a change. I got to start thinking differently, and I've got to start doing different things to create a willingness in him to even want to be with me, because he'd run away. And it's like, well, okay, let's do this. Let's do this on a small micro scale. Let's make a change. Let's see a result. And it would work. Oh my gosh, it would work. And that was the short term of cause and effect. Now, the long term of cause and effect, weeks into it, I got a saddle on him. He wouldn't run away when I'd go out to his pen. I could let other people ride him. Now, did these happen overnight? No, they're gradual. Self-awareness is gradual. What we think and do, we become, and it's not overnight. Now, I will say there's exceptions to that. It can happen overnight, but it's not the rule. It's not like, oh, it definitely has to take forever. It takes a long time. I just want to let you know, don't devalue yourself if it's not going as fast as you think it should, because I coach here my people, even in my horsemanship, we're just looking for a little progress each time we're together, and we want to compound that through law of compensation. We'll talk about that one later, but it takes the time it takes, and then we get into flow state that way because we're not in a hurry. We're not having unrealistic expectations. For this horse to allow another person on his back took years. It took years. A lot of people will not tolerate a horse like this because of the time that it does take. But I'm here to tell you, the effect of that was the most valuable lesson I could have ever learned in this life. Is what it does is priceless. What it does give us is something priceless. We can't buy it with money. It's not given to us by anybody else. We have to go through it. We have to experience it. We have to have conscious contact with it to learn it and live it and understand it in its full depths. So this horse is a representative of the law of cause and effect, or practicing it and understanding it, abiding in it, and seeing the results from it. So now, living in the effect, a lot of people say, oh, that's bad. I'm here to tell you, try not to label it good or bad, because I'm living in the effect of making those changes all those years ago right now with him. So living in the effect is not always bad. I mean, what's the point if we're not going to get this effect? So the thing about creating yourself, you're building something. You're building something, and anything that is of value, it's going to take time. It's like you're building character. You're building your character, and what your character is pretty much going to define your destiny. I have a character in this horse that is calm, quiet. He's still alert, paying attention, but he's willing. And he will step up to do things I cannot train him to do for my clients, for myself and clients. But that takes time. I have a relationship with him now that we built through me thinking, me feeling, doing in presentation. And I'll go a little bit deeper here, guys. Being is just as important as doing. So sometimes I would come into conscious contact with him and just be. And I would be in thought and not so much action, and be in cause. Because then he could see me breathe. He could see my true self. He could see I had no ulterior motive. Like, I want to make you do something. I want you to carry the saddle, and I want to ride you, and I want you to carry me up the mountains, and da-da-da-da. I got to be with him. I wasn't even brushing him. I was just, here I am. And then he would come to that. The effect of it was beautiful. He doesn't like his face touched even to this day. I mean, I'll give you an example. I can touch his face, but he's generally like, nah, I don't really like that. But touching his body, he's like, yeah, I'm cool with that. Go ahead and do that. So the being with him, man, he would come to me on his terms and put his head on my chest and listen to my heart and get curious. The three characteristics a horse will display, dominant ones: fear, curiosity, um, confidence. He would get curious. I'm like, hey, what are you? And I would try to just be with him and let him know, here's what I am. Here's the cause, what's the effect, and here's why. And then we wash, rinse, repeat that to where we develop this beautiful depth of a relationship that he was confident. He knew, okay, Justin, you're willing to change. I see you care. I'm willing to change. And let's go do something together. Like on this triangle, we'd start at the bottom of the triangle and we're working up to the peak together. And if I went too fast too soon, he let me know. And then we could go at the speed that was flow state, where our skills and our experience and our challenges we're about the same across that plane, to where we're going together and we're enriching each other's life, and we're heading to a point in that triangle that was producing some tangible rewards, real value. He got to be himself in the human element. The fear and the anxiety left him. The fear and anxiety left me. We focused on what we wanted, and the things we didn't want just fell away. That's a cause and effect. And that's what I'm here to explain, is when you can break it down into a small scale, because cause and effect's tough to see without real-time nanosecond feedback. And at least in my life, that's what I've discovered. Because sometimes you'll do something as a cause, but the effect is way down the road, and you lose sight of it. A lot of outside distractions come in, society. I was fortunate, and I got to go into the mountains with this particular horse. Whiskey was one of them too. He was my scout horse. When I went to go scout new ranches that we were managing, or new national forest areas we were going to be camping and hunting and fishing and doing all the things we did, I would take this horse because he's an athlete, and we could cover some ground. I would invest a day's time on his back, and we would go see thousands of acres. I mean, not every square inch, of course, but we would cover lots of ground with binoculars, stops, gets off binoculars, look around. And he knew what we were doing, and he was just all in. We were in his element, and he recognized, okay, I'm needed for you to do this mission. And I'm like, yeah, man, I need you. And I brought him into the human element, and he tells me, hey, I need you for this. And I'm like, I'm with you, brother. I'll help you. This horse, I had to kind of do some different things because I was still learning, cause and effect. And I still am, guys. This is not by any means, I know everything, cause and effect, here's how it works. If you guys are watching this and you know something, contribute in the comments. I'm willing to learn any element of this. I want to know more. But I had to teach him how to drive because he was not taken to the saddle real well. And so I taught him to drive, and he pulled a wedding carriage and a dinner carriage for a year or two, and thrived in it. And he just was not into the people. And as we started developing the dinner rides and the wedding rides and all those type things, I would take him to people and stop. And he's like, well, I'm kind of tired of pulling this carriage, and these people pet me. I like this. So cause and effect, he understood, okay, people are not so bad. And then we went back to saddle riding. He took a deep breath. I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to explain every time a horse does that, you guys do it too, because it's the internal synchronizations that are happening, that inner pathway of communication I talk about in the book. It's real. He breathes, I breathe. There's vibrational frequencies transferring back and forth between us. Get to kind of relax and slow down. I'm trying to cram a lot of information into this little video, and this is probably going to be a 1-hour video because I got to flip the board, explain the rest of this. But that law of cause and effect with this horse on that driving, it took us on a level we were at and slingshot us up to another level, because he realized very quickly, like, okay, law of energy conservation. He understands that very well. And pulling that wedding carriage, 6 miles up to the town and doing that. And he was resting and he was seeing people coming and going, and it would be like a parade and be a lot of people around and be real busy. And at first it was kind of overstimulation for a horse like this because he's so aware of everything. He's processing 50,000 different things, and that those things coming in are a cause, and the effect would be a reflection in his body of tension, nervousness, sweating, and he would have to self-regulate. And it was incremental spurts of that. So it wasn't like I just threw him into that day one, you're doing this. We had a little 2-wheel cart and we'd go to town when it wasn't real busy and graduate up to an event. So there's a formula for everything. There's an interactive system for desirable results that we practice. And without going into details on that law of cause and effect factored in with this horse all those years ago and every horse since. And it's where we are today. We're living in the effect of those things. So a horse like this would be considered invaluable to a lot of people. A horse like this, to me, is the most valuable horse to ever stand on 4 hooves because of the things that he taught me and I've seen him teach other people. A horse like this, so self-aware, highly acutely aware of his surroundings and willing to come into the human element and stand ground tied and relaxed, is proof that law of cause and effect works. So Duke, stay right here for a second. Stay right here. I know you're going to want to go with me. You love going with me. Just stay right there. I want to turn this board around. And see, I want a horse that wants to be with me. In the early days, he'd just run away. And today, he'll follow me anywhere we go. So again, self-awareness, we are revealing that gradually. The law of cause and effect helps us do that. Every morning when I wake up from sleeping, as you're just drifting into, awareness or awake consciousness, I'll start thinking, complimenting, gratitude, thankful to take a breath, thankful before my 2 feet hit the ground. I ask myself a question, specific question every morning. Do I want to compliment things today or do I want to complain? And I really just ask myself that to see how I feel from waking up, like make an assessment. And I'm here to tell you, there's been mornings where I'm like, I'm just going to complain. I don't feel like being complimentary. And I'm not telling you that's good or bad. I'm telling you, ask yourself that and be honest with yourself, because you cannot effective change without knowing that. I analyze the 4 things within myself daily, especially in teaching horsemanship. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What is my attitude? What is my action? Because how do I perceive myself as what I'm thinking and feeling? How the world perceives me is attitude, action. How far apart are those things of what I think I perceive myself as and what the world perceives me as? Well, on a macro scale, that's tough to do. But on a micro scale with a horse, it's pretty easy, because I can come out here and intentionally be in a bad mood. I can just start thinking thoughts that create an unpleasantness in myself and start playing with these horses and realize very quickly, like, this is not going in a direction that's conducive to enriching my life or enriching this horse's life, or if I have a client come in, enriching their life. So it's real easy these days to just quick change and be like, nope, I'm going to think on a higher level and of consciousness, of love. Go inward with that love. Gratitude helps streamline you to that. Present something worthy to the horse. If it's not getting the feedback that's desirable, make a change. And the only way that you'll ever develop this muscle is to practice it. Today, you can say, oh, I'll get to it next week or whatever, but today, practice it today. even if you're not with a horse, just start thinking, what have I been thinking in the last 12 hours? What do I think right this second? How do I feel about right this second? What is my attitude like right this second? What are my actions? That spiritual awareness is a very powerful thing. Our five senses are awesome. Enhance them, nurture them, grow them. They're important. That sixth sense I talk about in the book, when you can develop that spiritual awareness, you can create the life that a lot of people never will. And that really begroans me. I want everybody to have this. It's like fresh water. We all want fresh water. We all want food. He wants fresh water. He wants food. And if you know how to go get it and know where to get it and just keep sustaining yourself, and you see masses of people not getting it and you want to help them, that's out of my control in a lot of ways. But cause and effect plays into this. And here's why. And here's how. If you understand the law of cause and effect, it's on a micro for yourself, your relationship right here, but it's on a macro of all people. Because our first video, law of divine oneness, and you start to understand what you think and do affects yourself, you think and do affects everyone. It works kind of both ways too. If you should be doing something and you're not, that has an effect on you. It's like my own family member, a negative family member. I eat healthy and I want them to be healthy. Well, it doesn't work that way. However, I eat healthy. I do present an example of that. And then they have their own choice. But if I eat healthy and I expect them to be healthy and they're not, and it causes me to decline in my level of consciousness to, frustration or anger or anything like that, that will have an effect on me. And then if I'm living in that effect, perpetuating that in the short term to the long term, whatever you think and do, you become. So, I could have given you another one that's easier to understand. If you're angry at somebody and you eat poison wanting them to die, I don't know if you've heard that before. I've heard it a few times in my life. That has an effect. That's a cause, that thought, the effect does you no good. But if you think about things in a manner where I want the best for myself and I want the best for you, I understand what I can and can't control. But the cause and the effect will have some impact either way. So it's like this horse here. I want him to be calm and quiet and relaxed in his body when he's with a human. I have to think that way for myself and present that. I may not even get that in the short term like I expect. But in the long term, I do. It pays off. And that's the same thing I'm talking about. You eat healthy, wanting one of your family members to be healthy. You may not see it in the short term, but in the long term, it will pay off. It'll come. That's where we got to go inward with that love. Like, I'm not going to devalue myself based on an outside influence that I have no control over. That's just some examples that I wanted to give you on this. So today, my focus is my body, my soul. Resting is just important as working. Balance, getting into flow. And I'm immersed in my calling. And that's what I want for other people. If we know our calling, that's one thing. But if we are immersed in it and doing it, the cause and effect of that are going to be something that you could not begin to understand until it reveals to you. It's revealed to you. Today I get to work on what I want, I get to work on, with who I want, and I get to work when I want. And that is freedom. Now, back in the day that I started playing with this particular horse, I was a slave to living in the effect of a cause of society dictating what identity I should have. And I marched into that willingly, but because I didn't know these laws of nature. I didn't know that I could think for myself, do for myself, and become something I wanted to create. And it's tough to be able to see that unless you have a micro scale way to do it. And horses, the greatest accountability partner created by the same one who created me. I don't think there's anything better. I'm not sure. I've played with horses all my life since I was 5 years old, could form a memory. And what I've discovered is they were put here to prepare us and to help guide us. Hence my book, A Horse to Guide Me. In the short term, for the long term. In the cause, for the effect. I've been married 27 years, going on 27 years to the same lady. And it's a daily practice of thinking and doing cause and effect in that relationship. In the early days, in the beginning, it was shaky, just like the relationship with him. It wasn't clearly as defined as it is now. And the cause and the effect piece, had I known what I know now back then, yeah, I probably would be light years ahead of where I'm at. But I didn't, so it's okay. I know now. And it is so much better. When you can go inward and change your thoughts, change your emotion, the cause, your attitude and your action being the effect, you get nanosecond feedback with a horse, but also with a person, because you have that ability to do that. What we can control, our self-awareness, developing that, reaching a higher level of understanding of ourself, consciousness level, better alignment of those four things. We're better prepared for the outside influences, people, situations, circumstances. And you can almost bend reality, guys. I used to try to explain to people what I would get with horses alone, mountains, riding. And it's like we ascended, or we jumped over into a parallel universe, a dimension of time maybe, where things were so, perfect is like not even the word to describe it. It's like every answer to every question was there. When you reach the pinnacle of your breath and then you're just starting to exhale, that's like the state that you would be in, your body. Your mind, or my mind, would synchronize with their mind in the micro, but the mind of the macro it was synchronized with. It's tough to explain. I used to say bliss, there's a word, or balance, harmony, agreement with everything. And I had to incrementally be able to do that over time. So the law of cause and effect would dictate how long I get to be there. It was like in the early days, I'd get like 30 seconds. Whoo, that was a rush. Then it grew into like 3 minutes. And that was like, okay, this is addicting. I got to get back into this. How do I do this? What do I do? Well, I didn't even know these laws of nature in order. I didn't, maybe I heard of one or two here and there, but I didn't know how to apply them. And in my book, I talk about the 5-part series, transformation, series of 5 questions we can ask every horse, mechanical questions, to get deeper understanding of this individual. He gets a deeper understanding of me. I get a deeper understanding of myself. He gets a deeper understanding of himself in our relationship, human element. That way, when we go into nature, his, home, I can thrive. I can abide in these laws of nature, and I can reach that higher level of consciousness and stay there longer. Outside influences have little to no effect on that feedback loop on a micro scale and on the macro scale. And if I haven't told you before how wonderful it is for us to have access to horses, humans to have access to horses in America, there's like 330 to 360 million people now. There's only 9 million horses, 2.5 million horse owners, and I think that number is decreasing. So you got to look at accessibility to this piece. You found this YouTube channel, and I hope to bring you more. I'm going to keep going. I'm immersed in what I'm called to do, and I love being able to share this with you, without you having to fly out here and come to the school and I show you in real life, real time. This is about as close as I could bring you a gift that I get to partake in and hand it to you. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's true, and it's honest, and it's real. And I mean it's real. Swatting those flies, Bubby. It doesn't really matter what level you are watching this video. It matters what decision you make next. It matters what action you take next. What is your next move? That's what matters. In every horse I ever come into contact with, from today forward, I know, based on law of cause and effect, that I can ask that horse what level they're at, and I can present my level to them. And then I can get an assessment on ourselves together in that micro, and then where we're harmonizing, and then the macro. Understanding these laws of nature that this horse abides in, and we choose through free will to abide in them and apply them correctly. There's nothing we cannot do. There's nothing we cannot do. Our imagination, we are only limited by our imagination. These guys are so willing and ready to step up and help us do the good things that we were called to this earth to do. They'll do things that I can't train them to do. And I like to think I'm a pretty good trainer, but I don't even call myself that anymore, guys. It's like, I don't even know what to call myself. I play with horses. And then people come through that gate, and they're struggling out there in society, and they come into this little sanctuary that we have, and I get to show them in real life, like, hey, here is a beautiful creature representing nature, representing the laws of nature. And we get to learn with them what it is we should be doing, how we fit in the space, and then how we can reach our full potential. What other gift? I'm not sure there's another circumstance I could come up with right now that could create that understanding for you. I feel so blessed each and every day to wake up in my little sanctuary here, North Carolina, and see my horses. I have 9 of them, and I say my, but just so you understand, but have access to these horses, have access to nature, and allow the secrets to be revealed to me through aligning myself, the free will I have, the choice I have to align those 4 things that I have control of: my thoughts, my emotions, my attitude, and ultimately my actions. Understanding this law of nature, cause and effect. I think law of cause and effect is my favorite one because I got to practice it in micro scale. So tell you one more story, and then we'll call it good. This particular horse, I started him about 3, long, 2 years old, and we went pretty quickly. I think I was riding him in a couple of weeks. I think I got on him in a couple of weeks. I won't say riding. Riding was probably about 30 days in, month in, and landed a job on a big ranch out in Colorado. So in other words, in '06, I got him, and we pretty much left Texas to head to Colorado. He's barely handleable. Got in the trailer and away we went. Started working this big ranch, and I thought, man, I'll just ride this horse to work because it was only like 4 miles, 5 miles up the road. And that'll be good training and good relationship building, and hang out with me at work and hear me banging on stuff and sawing, And long story short, cause and effect became real clear to me being on a horse's back like this that was highly alert, acutely aware of everything I did because I'm on his back. And see, back then I was kind of unconscious to things I'm very conscious of now. And what I mean by that is what my hands are doing. You see me swat at these flies. I'm aware that I'm doing that, but there's people not aware of that. They say that we touch our face 2,000 times a day. I'll be teaching someone out here to communicate with a horse, and they'll swat at a bug, and the horse is like, hey, what does that mean? And then they'll ask me, why did he do that? And I'll explain to them, well, you swatted at a fly, so your hand gestured to them, they thought meant something. And then they'll kind of not argue, but like, I did that? And it's like, yeah, keep going, And they keep going, and then they swatted a fly again, and the horse does something like, oh, it just brought into their awareness that they did swat at a fly with their own hand, swat the fly, the effect, the horse did something obvious to cause them to question, why did the horse do what he did? Well, I was up here on his back learning this in real time, what the law of nature of cause and effect, what I'm telling you today, all those years ago, I was on his back learning what my hands are causing, what my legs are causing in a horse like this, of this caliber. And he kept going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster at everything. And I'm asking him questions, and I think I'm slow, and with my hands and in control of my hands on the reins and my legs on his body. And this horse is just highly sensitive on his body to begin with. So every little pressure is a question and compounded, and it spiraled out of control. And I mean, when I say control, is just so you can understand, we're never in control, but it was chaotic at best. We're going right real fast, left real fast, running forward, stopping, slamming on the brakes, almost fall. And it's like, whoa. And then I start learning things to do to trigger body responsive relaxation, a cause. So I would ask him to stop with a lateral flexion into a one rein stop. Release the pressure. Take a deep breath. Trigger a body response in him to take a deep breath and relax. And then wash, rinse, repeat that. So in the micro, I got to see a result like, okay, this isn't so chaotic. My hands, my legs, my body shifting, he's absorbing all these inputs and processing them, and they're spiraling into chaos, which is undesirable. And I want him to enjoy this. I want to enjoy this. And he would do things that would just really be escalated very quickly. Scale of 1 to 10, he's jumping to a 10 in the first, few minutes of our conversation, me getting on his back. So cause and effect on a horse like this, highly important. He would run off as I'm mounting up to get on. I got him to understand not to do that through cause and effect. And riding down the trail, he would escalate. So I had to learn restraint only escalates him more. So I would redirect, cause and effect. So he escalates up into a faster pace than I want to go. I redirect his energy, forward energy into the opposite direction. He declines in speed, and then I redirect him back the direction I wanted to go in the first place. And then he would relax into a walk. Rather than restrain with 2 reins of brake pressure, call it, he would push against that and go faster and charge ahead and faster and faster. And we're bitless bridles, so it's real easy for a horse to push on something to go faster than you want. So that law of cause and effect was real easy to learn with an individual like this. And I had to get creative, imagine a way to help an individual like this be willing to come with me to accomplish a higher purpose than myself, helping me with people in the life coaching business. So that cause and effect on a micro scale compounded on the macro scale all these years later to where you can mount up on this horse. He doesn't run off. He may take a couple of steps if you don't ask him correctly, because there's a system. If he walks faster than we want to walk, we have a way of asking him to just relax rather than restrain. So there's lots of variables that come into play on that law of cause and effect to create a horse of this caliber into one of the most magnificent horses I've ever had the pleasure to pet. Just being in a presence of an animal of this caliber is a blessing. I'm very grateful for. I actually become a better person just being with a horse of this caliber. You're not getting a real good read on a horse like this because we're standing ground tied talking in front of a camera. However, people that get to come here and get to ride this horse, they get to have conscious contact through feel and experience the value in these laws of nature. The four that we've talked about already, the law of divine oneness, what we think and do affects ourselves, what we think and do affects another. That's apparent. That law of divine oneness that we share. And then we go into law of action. What are my hands doing when I'm on this horse's back? What are my legs doing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What's my attitude like? What are my actions? What do I perceive myself? What does the horse perceive me? How far apart are those? Then we go into law of vibration. Am I thinking love? Am I thinking frustration? Am I thinking kindness? Am I thinking anger? Am I thinking what is my conscious thought process? What level am I at? This horse is there to tell you right now where you're at. This would intimidate and scare a lot of people. This horse, a horse like this, he's fast. He's very responsive. He's very acutely aware of his surroundings. He's not mean. There's not a mean bone in this horse. I see him with my other horses. With people, very respectful horse. They don't know how to be disrespectful, in my opinion, but he's one that you would give a mannerism of, he's a very respectful gentleman. That's this horse. But he demands an awareness because his self-preservation is so strong. He demands that you care about yourself and want to become better and be here in this present moment, conscious of what you're thinking and doing and what you're becoming in the short term as well as the long term. If you want a relationship on that triangle with a guy like this to go up to that pinnacle moment of understanding, highest awareness that you could get, that is the value that this horse brings to me and to many others. I can't say enough nice things about him. He's looking at two of my other horses behind the camera that are out there in that corral. But him standing here ground tied for this long and talking with you on this camera, he's like, I kind of like to not do this anymore. And I'm going to respect that. We're going to wrap this up. But in closing, guys, what I would like to say as I close this out, I've got to practice every law of nature that I'm going to share with you. This video, videos before, and videos in the future. I've got to do them all with this particular horse. And I've got to wash, rinse, repeat. I've got to immerse myself in it without outside distractions. We were in Colorado Rocky Mountains, he and I, this horse, 13 and a half years together. He was one of my main guide horses. He was one of my go-to horses. And he's been with me and thought with me, think together, thought with me. many a day, many a evening, many a night. We've done night, I don't know how many night operations we could call it, with the military. This horse helped with. He's just a well-rounded individual as far as a horse, but a soul. He's got a good spirit. He's got a good the being. This horse is and he brings that to all my other horses. That's what I want to try to close with. An individual like this has a cause and effect on the whole. And we get into that law of correspondence, laws that govern the heavens and the earth, above and below. This guy has helped me help other horses come to the understanding in the human element so much faster. He's such an asset. Words don't describe it. I'm really thanking him. I'm thanking you, Duke, and on this camera too, buddy. Thank you for being the star of the show, but also thank you for helping me help others so efficiently, so effectively. I'm talking others, people and horses. And, that law of vibration, whenever you think, and I'll just give you a real quick example as we close. When you think happy, this horse responds to that. When you think sad, this horse responds to that and gives you real feedback, especially when you're on his back. And I've been out riding on the trails and my mind will drift off, I mean to tell you, drift like he'll bring him back. He'll bring my mind back gently. He'll bring my thoughts back. And the spiritual element to that, that law of divine oneness is real. The law of correspondence is real, true and honest. That law of vibration, law of action, law of cause and effect, and the other laws that I'm going to share with you later, I've experienced them all with him, brings it into real perspective in a micro and a macro. I've watched it. It's beautiful. So I'm not going to ask him to stand here much longer, ground tied, doing this. I just want to make sure I went over everything with you. And I'm not editing these anymore because I just want you to see like real, here it is, cut and dry, uncut and dry. If you can imagine the best, it gets better. If you can imagine the worst, it gets worse. So write that down, think on that, and just know that you can effectively change yourself, your situation, and impact those around you, immediately around you, and collectively abroad. It's pretty cool. So thank you for watching my YouTube videos. I really like bringing these to you. And Duke, thank you for helping me, buddy. Bye-bye.